This is Newsline.
In this edition we ask,
what's the outlook for the market?
And we discover the facts behind the Granada upgrade.
We meet the sporty Escort S.
And find out why the Escort van's a winner.
We review the latest from the competition.
With the race and rally season starting, we look at motorsport.
We bring you the facts about price protection.
Give you the background to catalysts.
Review the latest Ford cellular phones.
And revisit RDS radios.
All this and more
in Ford Newsline.
Hello and welcome to the first edition of Newsline with me, Tony Bastable.
And me, Pam Rhodes. We've a packed programme of items specially selected to be of interest to anyone involved in selling Ford vehicles.
But first, the budget. This programme is being assembled on the day after Mr Lamont's first budget statement, a budget which he described as broadly neutral. Well, overall, it may have been just that, but there were a number of changes of major significance to the motor industry. Here are the highlights.
The motor car imposes large costs on others in the form of pollution and congestion. I have decided, therefore, to increase the duties on petrol and DERV by 15%, giving the private motorist a strong incentive to choose more fuel-efficient vehicles and ensuring that those who pollute most pay most. Mr. Deputy Speaker, many motorists do not own their own cars, but drive those provided by their employers. The scales for taxing the private use of company cars have been substantially increased in recent budgets, but many employers continue to pay their employees in cars rather than in money. I propose to increase the car scales again this year by 20%. I propose that company cars and fuel should now become liable for national insurance contributions, assessed according to the scale charges used for taxation. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I turn now to what I regard as one of the greatest scourges of modern life. I refer to the mobile telephone. I propose to bring the benefit of car phones into income tax and to simplify the tax treatment of mobile phones by introducing a standard charge on the private use of such phones provided by an employer.
Highlights there from Chancellor Lamont's first budget statement, and further examples, if you will, of what some newspapers have called the endless attack on the company car and its driver. For a reaction, I asked David Amis, Conservative MP for Basildon.
Well, it is sort of ironic, isn't it, that it should be the Conservative Party dealing with this, but I think the simple explanation from the government would be that these are perks and they should be drawn in line with other benefits paid to people. Employers' national insurance contributions have extended to cover company cars and fuel, and we believe it is important to move towards tax and NIC neutrality. So leaving company cars free of employers' NICs meant that it was cheaper to provide a car than pay the equivalent wage. Company car scales will be increased by 20% in 91 to 92, and the tax treatment of company cars is still quite generous, really. And I think the Chancellor feels that this increase puts a more realistic value on them for tax purposes.
Let's turn for a moment to the increases on the tax status of both leaded and unleaded fuel, and particularly diesel.
Yes.
Now we're moving into a more green-minded way of thinking.
Yes.
Shouldn't we, in fact, be doing what the Europeans are doing, and that is making the differential between diesel and petrol much greater?
I think what the Chancellor has done is fully in line with the government's policy on the white paper on the environment. The government believes that driving in itself imposes large costs on others in the form of pollution and congestion. So duties on petrol and DERV have been increased indeed by 15%, which is more than the rate of inflation. But I believe Norman Lamont thinks that the private motorist, through his action, will now have a strong incentive to choose more fuel-efficient vehicles and ensures that those who pollute most pay the most.
David Amis there, speaking to me from the House of Commons earlier. Well, now, let's go for a Ford perspective on all this, and we'll turn first to a man who might reasonably be expected to be standing on the roof of the head office down there at Worley, about to throw himself off, Fleet Sales Director Colin Brethwick. Are you really on the roof, Colin? And if you were, would you be throwing yourself off?
No, I'm not on the roof, but I am down at Worley, and I am down in the mouth. Very disappointed at the measures that have been introduced. Clearly, the company car operator is still regarded by the Exchequer as the cash cow, and I think will yet continue to be so for some time. I think there was a certain inevitability about the increase in scale charges. That comes as no surprise. What is disappointing is the fact that it was 20% increase, about double the inflation rate, and that does seem to me to be harsh. With the actions that he's taken, introducing national insurance charges on the company car benefit, increases in fuel taxes, and with no tax-based incentives to encourage operators towards either diesel-engined or indeed catalyst-equipped cars, it appears that his game plan is simply to reduce the number of miles driven by everybody. And in fact, David Amos expressed that view. Evidently, the Chancellor sees this as having a more beneficial environmental effect than incentivising business users or indeed the public at large to drive what I call cleaner cars, those fitted with catalysts or indeed diesel engines.
How surprised were you that he decided to tax the alleged benefit of having a car phone?
Again, I'm surprised, I'm disappointed. For the people that don't have a car phone or indeed a portable phone, it's seen as another benefit or a privilege or a perk. And I guess as long as there is focus on these kind of perks, there's going to be focus on the revenue opportunity. I think it's particularly unfortunate just now when everybody's trying so hard to be more cost-effective and efficient with their time, that a car phone, which, let's face it, in today's marketplace does enable you to be more operationally efficient, should suddenly come under the hammer for being taxed as a benefit.
Yes, I must say, on the face of it, it does seem curious. But there we are. I mean, depressing news this may be, but we are stuck with it.
Indeed.
So what do dealers actually do now? And do you think that in the real world, these changes are going to be that significant?
I guess the short-term reaction is, yeah, it's all bad news. It's going to raise the cost. It's going to force people to reconsider the value of the company car, whether it be a work car or a perk car. Right off the top of my head just now, I think that probably once the emotion has died down again, as it always does, I think that probably on this occasion the changes to the tax will not have a major effect adversely on the total number of company cars. But what I do expect to see is a significant move away from large cars towards smaller, better equipped and more fuel-efficient cars, and probably a move as well away from the larger engines. I mean, we've seen already a significant move in the last 12 to 18 months away from the above 2 litre engine. I foresee now that there's going to be a much greater concentration in the 1.4 litre and below, because clearly there's another tax break there, which is key. I think the people that are going to suffer most from this budget are the essential user company car drivers. The car is effectively a tool of their trade, and while many of them don't reach the 18,000 business miles a year, they can't claim that important 50% reduction in the scale charge. And I think that this is going to present a problem to their employers, and that we and they must get together and try to figure out how we can help alleviate this situation.
Well, at least looking on the bright side, you have got a new Escort and a new Orion, which would strike me as being very well placed to take advantage of whatever advantage is going.
Absolutely. You've got to make the most of everything that's to hand, and that is an ace for us right now. We've just got to take it to market and do the business.
Colin Brethwick there. But clearly the most significant of the Chancellor's remarks was this.
I am proposing, therefore, from the 1st of April, to increase the standard rate of value-added tax by 2.5 percentage points to 17.5%.
So there we are then, 17.5% VAT. Well, I hope on our other line to Ford Central Office is Sales Operations Director Ron Farrell. Ron, we all know the market's pretty bad. 17.5% VAT is not exactly going to help, is it?
Well, I suppose the glass is always half full as well as half empty, Tony. Depends when you're listening to this programme, I suppose, but if you're listening to it before the end of March, there's an opportunity, because customers will see the chance of taking delivery of a car, at least invoicing a car to the customer, with the 15% VAT. And, of course, we've been making arrangements during the course of this morning, this afternoon, to help our dealers to make sure that they can invoice their customers right up to the 31st of March. We've made special arrangements with our own finance organisation so that we're making special invoicing arrangements on the 2nd of April for vehicles which the dealers are trying to adopt over the weekend of Easter. So therefore it's a challenge for us, but we're going to make it so that we can help the customers, help the dealers and help the salesmen to take full advantage of this little bit of opportunity.
You're the only person I think I've ever spoken to who could turn a 17.5% VAT rate into an opportunity. And I certainly hope that this tape does get to most salesmen and most dealerships within 5 or 6 days before the actual change happens. Yes. But, OK, given that everyone capitalises on 5 or 6 days under the old regime, what will actually happen, Ron, after April the 1st? Do you think it's going to make that much difference, really?
Well, I spent this morning trying to listen to everybody, lots of advice from our economic advisors. We think it will have an effect. I think you heard Colin say just now, it will have an effect upon the market size overall. I guess by a little bit. We've been saying up until now that we think the passenger car market will be 1.8 million. We're going to revise our forecast down a bit to 1.7 million now. That's quite a bit down as far as our normal movement. It's quite a large movement, 100,000 down. It really does reflect a first reaction to this increase in the VAT. I have to say, however, that I think we're being a bit conservative because our indications from the business world is, in fact, that it isn't all doom and gloom. It wasn't a nice story to hear, but it isn't all doom and gloom.
Nevertheless, Ron, 100,000 units is an awful lot of cars that people apparently are not going to be selling. And I know that you will be the first to say that the Ford share should therefore increase to take advantage of what there is out there. What should dealers be doing? How should they be thinking out their strategy from April the 1st?
Listen, we've got some smashing tools that are available to us. The first thing I've done straight away, although the difference in fuel pricing is not as great as we thought it might be. There was an opportunity, I thought, for the Chancellor to take bigger steps. But there's still an opportunity by selling the front-wheel drive diesel vehicles. And what I've done straight away is to make sure that our manufacturing people are going to have more diesel front-wheel drive vehicles available for us, because I can see a downsizing of the engines and the size of the vehicles through the businesses and also through the retail market. And there is an opportunity with the diesel engine. And therefore, the dealers will be seeing over the next couple of months more availability of the diesel engine front-wheel drive.
So that's a good start. You're obviously thinking positively there. I mean, looking to the longer view, the other things that we haven't reflected in this report are Chancellor Lamont's remarks about inflation falling to 4%. There is no doubt, and probably by the time people get this tape, it will have happened, hopefully, that there will be a further reduction in interest rates. Now, surely that must be helping you.
Yes, certainly. Even before the budget, we had a strong indication that interest rates were going to come down again, and perhaps even twice more during the course of this year. But whatever happens, clearly businesses will change their cars. They have to change their cars. The individuals have got money in their pockets to spend. With interest rates coming down, as it will do, mortgage costs will reduce, as it will do, and these people want to do something with their money. We're seeing probably the market strength later in the year. We've always said to our dealers the market's going to be stronger in the back half than the front half of the year, but I think probably even more so now. I think probably we're going to see an improvement in the marketplace from July, August and September onwards, and we're already looking at what's going to happen to August and September. And as I said earlier on, I'm just making adjustments to our manufacturing plant arrangements to make sure we've got the right vehicles with our dealers at the right price, but in the right volumes too, in readiness for July, August and September. I think we've got a great opportunity coming there.
So the message is for the short term, hang on, be aggressive, be competitive, and sell what you've got, and you are going to try your level best to make sure that what they've got to sell is the right thing.
Look, we've got fuel-efficient vehicles. We've got vehicles as efficient as any other manufacturer in the country. We've got a good story on the cost of ownership. And any salesman meeting a customer ought to go in quite aggressive, quite confident that we've got the best product. And if the man's thinking of spending his money, let's make sure he buys a Ford, eh?
I'm sure you'll be the first to encourage him to do that. Ron Farrell, thank you very much indeed. Now, although widely expected, the budget did not make any concessions at all to catalysts. But, financially attractive or not, catalysts are on their way, as Pam's been finding out.
In less than 2 years' time, from January the 1st, 1993, it's expected that all new vehicles registered in the UK will have to be fitted with catalysed engines. Now, the recent surge in green awareness has meant that while most people have heard of a catalyst, a great many don't know exactly what it is and how it works. So I asked an expert in automotive regulations, Mike Hawkins, to explain in layman's terms to me.
Well, what is a catalyst? It's the catalysts that we use typically are a ceramic substrate, looks very much like a honeycomb but rather smaller, the surface of which is covered with an amalgam of precious metals from the platinum group. A very large surface area, alleged to equate to several football pitches in fact. This is contained in a stainless box and fitted into the exhaust system.
And what effect does it have?
The effect of that is to promote a reaction without changing its own state, and that reaction is significantly reduces the carbon monoxide, hydrocarbon and NOx contained in the exhaust.
Is the performance of the car affected?
It can be, but a properly designed system, no. It fits in the exhaust system very much in the same way as a silencer does and can be taken into account from the design stage.
Does the catalyst require particular servicing or maintenance care?
Yes, I think it does. It definitely requires care. The vehicle needs to be maintained and serviced. The catalyst is vulnerable, and it's particularly vulnerable to, for example, misfueling. You must never put leaded fuel through a catalyst system. It's vulnerable to misfire. It can be vulnerable to one or two other things like push starting, extended cranking. The purpose is to avoid burning excess fuel in the catalyst.
And if you need to change the exhaust, does the catalyst need changing too?
No, it can be separated, though I would hope with our rather higher quality exhausts used in conjunction with catalysts that wouldn't need to be done too often. Development looks at a span of 50,000 miles of durability, so all being well it should survive that long.
So what would you say to salesmen then that they should bear in mind when talking to customers about catalysts?
I think to stress the environmental requirement of the thing, to touch on the other advantages that it brings. You'll notice that the cars that have catalysts now have a high degree of fuel injection and electronic control, and to stress the care. And the care is to look after the thing, to have the vehicle maintained very properly, follow the recommended schedule, have it serviced frequently. All should be well.
Now let's move on to product. As you probably know, the entire Granada and Scorpio range has just been subject to a major upgrade, at the same time as the introduction of the exciting 24-valve engine option on Scorpio. So, what are the key changes? The question I put to Marketing Director Udo Kuhl.
Well, what we've really done is to simplify the range by reducing it to 4 series only, with the LX, the GLX, the Ghia, and the Scorpio. And we have, of course, dropped the Ghia X in the process.
When does it all happen?
It actually all happened in February, with production in February. The actual announcement of these changes will not be made until April in order to provide a time span to liquidate the old models.
So people should not be lumbered with large quantities of old stock then?
That's the intent.
OK. Why have you done it?
We've done it in order to improve our competitive position in the face of some new models, such as the Citroën XM and the Peugeot 605.
Now, the really big news on the Granada front is the introduction of the 24-valve engine, which comes in on the Scorpio. Let me put this to you. It is a very sophisticated power unit. Isn't it going to make that car simply too expensive in the class?
We, of course, continue with the 2-litre engine for the Scorpio. The purpose of the 2.9-litre engine in the 24-valve configuration is to provide a fully competitive high-performance car, but not in the sense of a racing car, more in the sense of being a very responsive and high-technology entry in this market segment.
Now, I notice, and I wonder if it's deliberate, that if you open the bonnet of that model, you will see engraved on the rocker boxes, Ford Cosworth. Are you marketing this as a Cosworth Scorpio, or are you downplaying the Cosworth name?
In a sense, we are downplaying the Cosworth name since we do not have any badging on the car to this effect. But clearly, in designing this car and bringing it to the market, we were bent on having the highest technology, most sophisticated powertrain available, and I think we've achieved that.
But you are deliberately not marketing this as an out-and-out performance car.
No, we are really aiming the car at the boardroom and not the racing circuit.
Finally, let me ask you this. We all know it's a very tough market out there. Do you think you've done enough with these changes to sustain interest and the commercial viability of Granadas and Scorpios?
Well, I've driven a number of competitors to the Granada recently, and my assessment is that the Granada still has unparalleled roominess, a very high feature level, and a very high equipment level. With the new powertrains we now have, I believe that the car will be extremely successful.
Udo Cool there, sounding bullish about the future of the Granada and the Scorpio. But of course, although the 24-valve Scorpio is new to the buying public, it isn't new to one very particular kind of user. Don Abernathy, who's the supervisor of fleet validation down here at Ford's Engineering Centre at Dunton, knows all about those users. They are, in fact, Don, the police. Is that right?
That is correct, yes.
How many cars have you had out there and for how long, roughly?
We're running 7 cars with the police at the moment, and they've been running for about 4 to 5 weeks. And up to now, they've all averaged around about 5,000 to 6,000 miles.
Now, that's quite a lot of mileage so far. How long will they keep them for?
They will have them for 12 months, and we anticipate that each car will have completed 100,000 miles by the end of 12 months.
100,000 miles per car. That's nearly 750,000 miles.
Absolutely, yeah.
What do you hope to learn from this exercise?
We hope to convince ourselves and the police and the customer that we have got a product that matches up to everything we say it will do, to make sure that there are no concerns on it, that the quality is good, the performance remains up to scratch throughout the entire life of the vehicle.
So it's an amazing running test bed, in other words?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Right. I know it's early days, but what sort of remarks are you getting back from the police about that engine?
Excellent. They're very, very happy with the engine, they're very happy with the chassis. Sort of remarks we're getting, I read one the other day where they commented on the fact that the acceleration was absolutely stunning.
And I think if I can let the listeners into a little secret, because I saw that remark too, what it actually said was the acceleration was absolutely stunning, particularly between 80 and 120 miles an hour. Is that right?
That's right, yes.
Which is not exactly the kind of road condition that the average driver can create easily for himself.
Not really, unless he wants to go to the continent or stay here and lose his licence.
What's so special about the police? Aren't they merely reinforcing the lessons that you would have learned anyway from driving cars on test tracks? Or is there something different about the kind of experience they put the cars through?
They are a very, very hard user of a vehicle. There is no doubt about that. And even the police themselves will admit it. In addition to that, they accumulate miles very, very fast. But most importantly, they accumulate those miles on the public road in normal service operating conditions, which one cannot do in testing. You just cannot do it on a proving ground. You can simulate it as much as you can. You can simulate it on a test rig in our test shops downstairs, but it's still not the same as running on the road in amongst other drivers, different road surfaces, etc., etc.
Do we know how many of the UK's police cars are Fords?
Well, I understand at the moment that we have in the order of 50% of all police cars in the UK are Ford cars, whether they be Fiestas, Escorts, Sierras or Scorpios.
And finally, I would have thought that the ultimate police car for motorway work, setting aside perhaps the new 24-valve Scorpio, would be the Sierra Cosworth. How's that doing as a police car?
We've only just recently introduced it as a police car, and I know of at least one force who have actually got a number on order and have been running one or two for some little time now, and they're very pleased with it. And in fact, I think they have made the comment that they think it is probably the best traffic patrol car there is on the market today.
Unfortunately for all the rest of us.
Right.
A welcome newcomer to the Escort and Orion range launched last autumn at the Birmingham Motor Show is the Escort S, a stylish and sporty addition to the existing range. I've come down to the test track at Dunton to take a look at the car, and that sporty image is enhanced with the tailgate spoiler, body-coloured bumpers with black inserts to match the inserts on the side mouldings, and of course the distinctive S badge. Let's take a look inside. Well, there's a really classy feel inside the car, perhaps helped by the new interior trim, Zolder, and there are all the features that you'd expect to find in the Escort range, with the addition of some extras which come as standard on the S Escort. The sunroof, for example, powered front windows, the sport steering wheel, and something I really appreciate, the quick clear windscreen, which on those cold mornings is such a bonus, no more having to scrape the windscreen with a credit card. Anyway, let's get underway and see how she drives. The 1600 fuel-injected engine is nippy enough to match the sporty image of the car, and there's the sports suspension, which gives for a much firmer drive. There's a range of optional extras, several of which are fitted on this particular car. There's the catalyst, ideal for the green-minded amongst us, and I certainly don't notice any loss of power because of it. There's the reassurance of ABS brakes, and there's power-assisted steering, which certainly is a bonus for women in particular. All in all, it's a car with panache and style which is likely to create a great deal of interest. Why is it an S, though, and not an XR3i? Yudo cool again.
We are really waiting with the XR3i until we have the new engine, which is now in its final stages of development. The S is intended to be an affordable, sporty car in the intervening period.
The recently introduced Escort van may be a little more prosaic than the S model, but it's going to be very popular indeed with its users. I asked Dave Chalice, the product training specialist for commercial vehicles, just what are the key features on the van which salespeople need to bring to customers' attention.
I think when you're talking about Escort from the beginning, you have to talk about the fact that it has two trim levels. We also have two payloads available. The lower 40 payload for when cube is of essence and not payload, and we also have the 60, which brings it to best-in-class payload capability of all its competitors. The load cube itself is a very practical type of load cube with squared wheel boxes, which makes the usable load very good. It's also, of course, best in class. Some of the features that we like to point out, and we would certainly expect the customer to take note of, is the smooth aerodynamic transition between the cab and the load compartment. The load compartment is a dedicated van. It's built on a dedicated van chassis, and it's not off the chassis of the car, which is sometimes thought of by the customer coming in fresh on an Escort van. The vehicle has some concealed drip rail design, and it also has the concealed roof rack mounting points, which are weatherproofed with small covers. The rear doors are an excellent feature of Escort. It has single-handed locking, which means that once you're unloading bulky objects and you can't put them down, you can shut the rear doors and lock it all in one go. It also has the ability to open to 90 degrees for in-street work, or for 180 degrees where large loads have needed to be put in and out of the van. It has an excellent cab appointment, and in fact, when sitting in the driver or passenger seat, you actually wouldn't know that you're in a commercial vehicle.
OK, I would expect you to be enthusiastic about it, but how about the competition? What are the competitors in this area of the van market?
The major competition that are available against the Escort really are only two vehicles. There's the Astra Max and its family of Astra Van as well. The Astra Max is a similar design to Escort, and some will say look very, 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 very similar side by side. It isn't as aerodynamic, and it hasn't got the advantages of payload and load cube that the Escort has got. The only other competitor is the Maestro van. The Maestro is a very old-looking product now. It's had some minor facelifts which have kept it going. It is a very serious competitor when it comes to load length and load cube and load capacity, but it isn't as good as the new Escort van.
Well, that's just about all we have room for on this side of the tape. Join us for more from Newsline on side 2. Welcome back to part 2 of Newsline. Well, now to the competition. We'll be including a review of what the competition is up to as a regular feature in these Newsline programmes. Luckily, there was a good opportunity recently to take a look at a wide range of competitive products at the Fleet News Show at Olympia. We sent our reporter, product specialist Kevin Griffin, down there to nose about, and here's the first of his reports.
There's a great deal going on in the motor industry, some of which is evident here today. The Rover Metro. Not exactly a new vehicle, but a good marketing campaign, that we cannot deny. The vehicle has been increased in size, basically to accommodate the new engine. Despite vigorous marketing campaigns and extensive advertising, the car has really only managed to maintain its market share of around 4%. Undoubtedly, it has a good powertrain, but remember, there's no diesel, there's no automatic, and there's no room in the back of the car. To try and quote their marketing campaign, if you blindfold an old Metro owner and put him in the seat of the car, he won't recognise a derivative. You ask him to get in the back, he sure will. Moving forward onto Nova. Nova is a facelift rather than a new model, and it was first shown at the British International Motor Show. There's front-end changes to the trim level. I believe there must be concerns from Vauxhall that there really is no halo effect on Nova, in that they don't have anything in the sports or higher series. The GSI just simply does not have the pedigree of the XR2i, and they haven't even attempted at a Nova CD. Peugeot 205, not a great deal to say other than the new turbo diesel engine. It's a new, good powertrain, producing 78 PS and provides good performance and economy. However, at a maximum retail price, including taxes, of £10,475, equipment levels are disappointing. To put it in perspective, you can buy a Fiesta 1.4 gear 5-door for £10,160, or indeed an Escort 1.8 diesel LX 5-door for £10,300, both offering more value for money. Probably the most interesting vehicle in this category, which has come to the show, is the Renault Clio. Visually, it is very Fiesta. It has won the European Car of the Year award, and I'm sure the car is going to be a good competition. It's available in 3 and 5-door derivatives with a 1.2 60 PS and a 1.4 80 PS engine. 3 further engines, a 1.9 diesel, a 1.8 petrol and a 1.8 16 valve are due later this year. Catalysts are standard across the range on this car. Prices unfortunately are not yet available, but I think this is one we should watch. I would like to talk about the Nissan Sunny, but due to the ongoing dispute between Nissan UK and Nissan Europe, fleet managers have not been given the opportunity to view any of the Nissan products, either of the Primera or the Sunny. They are good cars, but with the continued dispute, sales are obviously going to be affected. And who says that Japanese never have such problems? The Escort and Orion segment has and will see significant model changes over the next 18 months. The latest gossip on the new Astra indicates that we will not see this vehicle this year. This obviously protracts Vauxhall's run-out plans, and we envisage that very shortly they will follow our lead in providing a run-out vehicle, probably based upon the L, a 1.4 powertrain with some sporty visual cues. Volkswagen Golf. Well, VAG are likely to continue their safety marketing stance and offer good levels of build quality, but relatively low standards of features. And although we don't have pricing available or we haven't seen a model here at the show, we believe it's going to be a little pricey. Citroën ZX, once again a car that's not here at the show but will be coming up quite soonly. It's available in 4 models, the Reflex, the Advantage, the Aura and a sporty Volcano. Much will depend upon Citroën's ability to provide finish quality and interior presentation if they're to increase their popularity within the British car market. Indeed, the car is relatively bland compared with recent introductions. It'll be interesting to see how new customers will take to this image. It's been also some while since we have seen such aggressive marketing of BMW 3 Series. Discounting, heavily marketing campaigns. The new car is here today, and we do have to say that it looks pretty good. 4.3 inches longer, wider, and an overall sleeker look. But what the price? After talking to people on the stand, it was impossible to get any price indications out of them. Maybe that's why it's so important that the old models are cleared. Clearly the customers are going to be asked to take a significant price walk, and once again we come against the scenario of it's a larger car, and should it really be in that category? Rover announced the availability of the 1.8 diesel engine, normally aspirated on the 218 SD, turbocharged on the 218 SLD, 418 SLD and 418 GSD. Pricing? Well, Rover still maintain premium pricing, with the 218 SLD of a maximum retail price at £12,675, which is £565 more expensive than the Escort 1.8 diesel gear 5-door. The 418 GSD at £14,250, well, you can get a Sierra Sapphire 1.8 turbo diesel GLX and keep £1,390 in your back pocket. Interesting point that the 200 and 400 diesels are also being supported with an offer of a free car phone supplied and fitted. That just shows Rover's confidence in the diesel market. From the Fleet News Show for the moment, let's go back to the studio.
And we'll be hearing more from Kevin down at the Fleet News Show later in the programme. In fact, Kevin mentioning car phones there takes us neatly to our next item. Now, as you know, for some time it's been possible to have a Ford phone fitted to a Ford car. But these were after-fit phones supplied through parts operations. Now the story is different. Ford Cellular Systems has been set up to develop mobile communications products specifically designed for Ford vehicles. Tony asked Nigel Bunter, the manager of Ford Cellular Systems, why Ford is entering this market, and in any case, why now?
Well, firstly, Tony, it's a major business opportunity both for Ford and for Ford dealers. It's a rapidly expanding market. It's estimated to be worth over $17 billion by 1995. And that makes it really one of the fastest growing industries in Europe in the 90s. And secondly, our research has indicated there's strong customer demand, firstly for better time management in his car. Secondly, improved personal security. We know this is an issue, particularly with women today. Thirdly, the better installation quality is required. Many of the problems of cell phones are caused by poor installation. Finally, better quality of service. We need to give our customers a better after-sales service than they currently get.
So let me ask you then what the differences are between a Ford cellular phone and any other proprietary brand.
Well, we've been working with our suppliers, like Motorola, for nearly 2 years. We've re-engineered their product to the standard that Ford requires in its vehicles. And let me give you a detail. We've made 41 changes to their standard mobile phone. And it ranges from matching the lighting to the instrument panel lighting, right through to changing the filters in the transceiver that ensure that these are compatible with the other car electronics. So, very simply, you cannot buy our product from anywhere else. It's produced uniquely for Ford. As the number and the complexity of car electronics increases in the 90s, we have to look upon all the electronic components as a system. So we need to ensure that the cellular phone does not interfere with the ABS, does not interfere with the audio, or indeed with the electronic engine management system. In short, just as in audio, we need to tailor the cellular equipment, just as we did with audio, to the individual vehicle.
From the dealer's point of view, cellular phones have been sold very largely of late on the basis of we're going to give you the phone practically, just buy the airtime from us. How does a dealer compete with a chap who's practically giving phones away, or the £25 cellular phone?
It's not true to say that the majority of phones are sold at the £25 level. We estimate that 80% of the market is sold around about the £200 mark. Secondly, the £25 car phone very often is a second-hand phone, or it's discontinued, or it's last year's model. And let me tell you, if you try and get that £25 car phone serviced, you won't find the guy still there. There's often hidden extras, is what I'm saying. You might have to pay extra for the antenna. And the most common hidden extra is, of course, a very harsh airtime contract. It's very common within the industry to ask people to sign 5-year contracts. At Ford Cellular Systems, our contract is 1 year, and we think that's fair to the customer. So the £25 car phone, yes, it exists, but there's lots of drawbacks to it.
Earlier you remarked that one of the key measures of success of a good cellular system was the installation. Do you want Ford dealers to undertake that installation, and will you be training them to do so if you do want them to do it?
Yes, we want dealers to do installations, but even more than that, we want them to be trained properly to do those installations. So we're embarking on a national installation course together with Motorola and together with customer services that will allow dealers to install properly and install to the standards that we and I'm sure the customers expect.
Of course, Nigel and I were discussing cellular phones before the announcement of the new tax. But, as Colin Brethwick said earlier, the cellular phone is clearly an aid to efficiency. Tax or not, it's clearly here to stay. Pam?
Now, listen closely to this.
Ford's new Escort meets its rivals and loses.
Now, how about this?
The most significant new car of the decade.
Well, they could be talking about two entirely different products, couldn't they? But in fact, both those quotes were about the new Escort. The first was from Autocar and Motor, and the second from the Coventry Citizen, a local paper. Now, how is it possible for the press to come up with such differing opinions about the same thing? Steve Warmington from Ford Public Affairs, on duty at the Fleet News Show, has his own views.
Well, you have as many different journalists as you have people, and journalists write for many different reasons. And the reports that we have initially had, because obviously you give the cars to Autocar and Motor, those are the specialist press. Now, the specialist press have very different values and very different things that they want out of a car to the people that come through the doors of showrooms. The specialist press are looking for things that are very, very exciting. They're looking for things they can talk about. They're looking for innovation. They're looking for particularly, I suppose, excitement, because they have a string of cars coming through their hands and they're looking for something different. The public are not necessarily looking for something that's different. Very often, in fact, they're looking for something that's exactly the same as they've always had, something that's solid and reliable. And some of the virtues which journalists look for are, in fact, very alien to the public. Some of the tests that journalists put cars through, for instance, when we're talking about Autocar and Motor as an example, they will do things to motor cars which I very much doubt that a member of the public that's bought his car is ever going to do during the life of that vehicle. Now, when we're looking at what journalists want out of cars, we have to recognise there are a couple of different kinds of journalists. There are those who professionally write, and their whole world is about cars, and they want to be able to see something slightly different about a particular car they can write about. Then there are the regional press who actually treat cars very much as you or I would treat a car, and what they're writing about there are things which they have to pay for themselves, they have to get them serviced themselves, they need dealers that can back up their particular purchase, and they need to be able to sell the car at the end of all that. And those people have very different values, and that is why, to a certain extent, the regional press have been a lot kinder to us than the specialist press have been, particularly with Escort Orion.
So there you are, you pays your money and takes your choice. Personally, I've never been sold on the traffic lights Grand Prix. A car is for driving every day, not just for track tests. And talking of test drives, the Drive with Pride programme, offering 24-hour test drives to prospects with a chance to win a new car, is about halfway through. So has it been working? The question Tony put to Peter Fleet, the project's coordinator.
Well, we're sure it has, because we've had 38,500 potential customers of our vehicles ring our free phone number and register their interest in taking a free 24-hour test drive in a new Ford car.
But it's one thing getting a potential customer behind the wheel of a car and indeed getting him to walk through the dealership in the first place. I'm sure that's very advantageous. Is there any evidence that those people actually end up buying cars?
We are sure that when the programme closes, we'll be able to demonstrate that a proportion of those people did purchase a new Ford Escort or Orion as a result of their test drive. If we're confident about the car and we have pride in demonstrating the vehicle, then we should be certain that some people will buy the car. But if they don't buy a new model Escort or Orion, the shrewd dealer should be able to look at the prospect who's come through the door of his dealership and perhaps persuade him to buy a previous model Escort or Orion, or perhaps a Fiesta or something else.
Peter, Ford do make a contribution, and I use that word advisedly, to the dealers' costs of providing these test drives. But of course, dealers complain it isn't enough. What do you say to that?
Well, It's a very comprehensive programme, and in that state of affairs it's quite an expensive programme to Ford Motor Company. We've put up £218,000 worth, that retail value, of new Escort and Orions as prizes with the Daily Mirror and Record competition. We've promoted the competition, we've administered the competition, we're paying for the fully comprehensive insurance for each customer who takes a test drive, and we're rewarding the dealer with a contribution of £20 plus VAT towards the costs of each test drive. We're aware that in some instances that £20 will only be a contribution towards the costs of the test drive. But if we're asking the dealer to make a small contribution towards the costs of the programme, then we don't think that's wholly unreasonable.
When does Drive with Pride finish?
Dealers have until May the 31st to take their customers on the free 24-hour test drive, and then they send the draw entry cards off to the Ford Information Service and are entered for the free prize draw, which takes place on June the 18th. The dealers, if they're lucky to have one of the winners from their list of prospects, obviously have a wonderful local press opportunity to be seen as the supplying dealer of this free Ford car.
OK, now let's turn our attention to motorsport, and in this edition of Newsline we're going to be concentrating on Ford's rally effort. Now that rally effort almost came to a classic victory in the Monte Carlo rally earlier this year. Barry Reynolds, who looks after the public affairs area of motorsport, is joining me on the line now from Boreham. Barry, tell us the story behind the Monte Carlo. You must have been jolly disappointed by the result.
Yes, of course we were disappointed, but there was also a great deal of encouragement there. We had 3 cars in the rally and all 3 cars finished in the top 10, so it does show that we have something in the future. But of course it's a long, long rally. It goes over 5 days, and we'd brought a new man into the team, a man that was really unknown in the world of motorsport, and that's Francois Delacour from France. He was the dark horse. He started slowly, worked his way through the field, and eventually on the 5th night, the last night, he was 9 seconds behind the reigning world champion, Carlos Sainz. Mm-hmm. As the night progressed, he overhauled Carlos Sainz, took the lead, and slowly pulled away until the very last time stage. He went in with a 41-second lead. We thought victory was ours. But unfortunately, Lady Luck wasn't with us that night, and a part on the suspension broke. Francois went off onto the side of the road, damaged the car, and slowly pulled himself out of the stage, only to take 3rd place. So yes, there was disappointment, but I think we've shown the rest of the world that we are capable of mixing with the best of them.
And of course, it's not as if you've just had successes with the Sierra Cosmos. I think surely the most alarming thing for any motorsport team is to gain a totally unexpected victory. Tell us about the Talavera rally.
Oh, yes. Well, we built a 4-wheel drive Escort Cosworth, the first prototype of a car that you're not actually going to see until 1993, or we will compete in it in 93. First time out, the car was built very, very quickly. We took it down to Spain to test it on a Spanish gravel rally, and this is a relatively short rally, but it's very, very rough indeed. The car behaved perfectly, didn't miss a beat, and ultimately won the rally. And that's not bad for first time out of the box.
I'll certainly buy off on that. Now, let's change back for a moment to the Sierra Cosworth. Barry, is it too early to say, are we going to see a Ford driver at the wheel of a Sierra Cosworth become World Rally Champion this year, or will it be next year?
I think this year is probably a little bit over-ambitious. I think we, without doubt, will come back with a couple of first places this year. We're very enthusiastic about our next event, which is Corsica. So keep your eyes on that. We'll feed you with information on that one. But I think as the year goes on, there are several events where we will come away with victory. And I think our ambition, of course, is for World Championship in 1992, and 3 and 4.
And 5 and 6 and so on.
Of course.
Well, Barry, thank you very much indeed. When you report to us next time, let's try and pick up on the fortunes of the Benetton Ford Formula One team, shall we?
Yes, of course.
From March the 4th, a standard feature on almost all Ford radio cassette players is RDS, or the Radio Data System, described by the BBC as probably the most significant advance in the radio set since the invention of the transistor. But is RDS just technical wizardry for its own sake, or does it have some tangible benefits that the salesman should be pointing out to the customer? Let's ask Steve Humbles of Ford Electronics.
Well, RDS does have particular benefits which are of use to the driver. Firstly, it actually displays the name of the radio station you're listening to, so that you always know which station you've tuned to. It will allow the radio to automatically switch between frequencies as you travel around the country. So if you're listening to, say, BBC Radio 1, it will always know which is the strongest frequency for that radio station in your given area. And thirdly, it will allow you to make sure that you receive the latest traffic news at all times.
What do you see then as the future potential of the system?
Well, really the system has tremendous potential because it's based on the use of a digital signal that the radio receives, so any amount of information could be transmitted by the broadcaster to the radio. Already the radio is able to interrupt a tape player to give you the latest travel news if you're tuned to one of the traffic information stations. But in the future, the radio will be able to interrupt any radio station to give you the latest travel news.
What is the reaction to RDS of the broadcasting organisations at the moment? Are they committed to putting out the signal?
Yes, the BBC are leading the way, but the IBA are also very committed to it as well, and there is a plan to progressively introduce more and more stations onto the RDS service.
How widely available is RDS at present across the range?
Well, with production from March the 4th, RDS radio cassettes are now standard equipment on every single Ford car, with the exception of the Fiesta Popular and the Escort Popular. Now, when you look at our competitors, that puts us in a very strong position, because at the moment, RDS is only available as standard equipment on the Volvo 900 series, and that is all.
So obviously RDS gives a tremendous marketing edge to Ford over their competition. And on the subject of competitors, Kevin Griffin is looking now at what's out in the marketplace to compete with the Sierra and the Granada as we go back to join him at the Fleet News Show.
Well, thank you. Welcome back to the Fleet News Show. And we really need to start with Cavalier. Catalysts are now available on the 1.6 engine, as well as the 1.8 and the 2 litre. The 1.7 diesel can now be ordered on the GL as well as the L. Peugeot 405 have followed suit, announcing the availability of a 1.6 catalyst engine on the 405 GLI. Fiat Tempra. Following the launch of the saloon at the British International Motor Show, Fiat now unveil their Tempra estate, available with 1.6 and 1.8 petrol engines. Unfortunately, even though the car's here, they still won't tell us the prices. Moving upward, we can look at the CD class. Peugeot 605 exhibit the new SRDT featuring 3 valves per cylinder diesel engine. Diesel sales at this end of the market are few and far between. However, the car does offer an orthodox alternative to the Citroën XM. Volvo 900 announced a new 2 litre version of the 940 SE. Interesting though, for a company that's continually marketing safety, ABS is not a standard feature. Carlton now offer leather trim as an option on CD and CDX. Maximum retail prices of £1,200 on CDX and £1,445 on CD. It really does make the leather trim option on Scorpio at £500 tremendous value for money. Well, that rounds up my views of today. Hopefully we can come back to you very shortly and update you with what's happening in the marketplace. Thank you very much.
Kevin, thank you very much indeed. Now, a few weeks ago, Ford launched its Customer Order Price Protection Programme, a very significant move indeed. There's already been a lot of information sent out about the programme, but it's so important that I reviewed it again with the man who knows all about it, Jim Walker, the Manager of Car Sales Administration. I started by asking Jim what a salesperson needs to know about customer order price protection in order to explain it adequately to a prospect.
The system is relatively simple there, but the salesperson must clearly understand what is meant by customer order price protection. It applies to written customer orders for new car and commercial vehicles which have been taken before the effective date of a price increase, where the customer is prepared to take delivery of the vehicle within 3 calendar months of the date of the order being accepted by the dealer, and in any event as soon as the vehicle is available for delivery to the customer. And the specification of the vehicle supplied is substantially the same as that at the time of order. It's vitally important that salespersons and customers clearly understand that in order to get the benefit of price protection, the customer is required to take delivery of the vehicle, or at least pay for it, as soon as it is available.
Now, you say there, or at least pay for it, but that does beg the question, why, in that instance that you've quoted there, should a customer pay for a vehicle if it's ahead of the time he wants to take delivery of it? Why should he do that?
Well, it's unreasonable, really, for any retailer to hold back on a price increase for the benefit of his customer unless the customer is prepared to pay for the goods when required to do so by the retailer. It's the same with customer order price protection, and I'm sure that the vast majority of customers will be only too happy to pay for their vehicle when you ask them, if by doing so they avoid having to pay the increased price. Anyway, once the customer pays for his vehicle, you can arrange the registration and delivery to suit your customer's requirements.
Right, so how does a salesperson then arrange to price protect a customer's vehicle?
Well, let's just try to forget about price protecting the vehicle. This is not really important. The most important thing to remember is that it's the customer's order that qualifies for price protection. I repeat, the customer's order. It's then up to you, the salesperson, to decide how to satisfy that customer's order. This can either be done by allocating a stock unit, by transferring in a suitable unit from another dealer, or by placing a factory order. Irrespective of when that vehicle is allocated to satisfy that customer order, the order still qualifies for price protection, even if it takes 4 or 5 months to build and deliver the vehicle.
Does a dealer have to provide every qualifying customer order with price protection? Is that mandatory?
Yes, Tony. Indeed, this programme has been featured in our media advertising, and therefore all qualifying customers are entitled to the price protection. That is, the price the customer pays is the same as the price on the written order.
Right. What categories of vehicle are eligible for price protection then?
Well, there are actually 2 categories. The first category are vehicles which came into stock after the effective date of the price increase. Essentially, for vehicles which are gate released after the effective date of the price increase, dealers have the facility to adopt the vehicle at old price for a period of up to, but not beyond, 30 days from gate release. It is important that you recognise this 30-day window during which the vehicle can be adopted at old price, and ask your customer to pay for the vehicle so that you can then adopt the vehicle from Ford. After the 30-day period is passed, you cannot adopt at old price.
What about the situation where you've got vehicles that were in stock before the effective date of the price release?
Sure. Our stock vehicle price protection policy continues for vehicles which are in SOR stock at the time of the price increase. Currently, stock vehicle price protection is for about 4 weeks following the effective date of the price increase. And these vehicles can be adopted for any reason, I repeat, any reason, at the pre-increase price level during but not beyond this period.
And does the price protection apply just to the basic price of the vehicle?
No, the price protection applies not only to the basic price of the vehicle but also to the factory fitted options, the car tax, delivery and of course the VAT.
What on earth are you going to do about the situation come August time when customers say, yes, I want my new car, I want the new plate on it, I want it on August the 1st. Sorry, Mr. Dealer, I don't want to take delivery of this car on July the 8th.
Sure, we recognise this, and this is extremely important from the customer's point of view. In this event, we will write to you at the appropriate time to explain that orders taken from April onwards will be eligible for price protection as long as the customer agrees to take his delivery no later than the 10th of August. In such cases, vehicles entering SOR stocks in the period April 1 through July 10 will be available for adoption at either current or previous price through until the 10th of August.
Well, as you've probably gathered, price protection is a very important programme. You can find full details in General Letter GL 91/002, dated February the 6th. And while we're talking about communication, there have been quite a few changes on the training front. This year alone, we've seen a new product binder, a new style of plan module, the LX video, and now this new audio tape. And we want to hear what you think about them. So please fill in the questionnaire enclosed. We really do want to hear from you.
And that just about wraps it up for this time. We'll be back in the summer.
So until then, from the Newsline team, goodbye.